Good morning, and thank you for joining me for this Sunday sermon from Holy Saviour Church in Hitchin on this Remembrance Sunday. I'd like to read to you a short passage from the prophet Micah, chapter 4, beginning at the first verse. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and peoples will stream to it. Many nations will come and say, "Come, let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of the God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths. The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He will judge many peoples and will settle disputes for strong nations far and wide. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war any more. Everyone will sit under their own vine and under their own fig tree, and no one will make them afraid, for the Lord Almighty has spoken." Did you know that in any time over the last 50 years, there are always at least 20 wars being fought around the world? It seems that peace is the exception, not war. In spite of all of our many achievements, humanity cannot find the answer to conflict. We may be able to split the atom, but we don't know how to bring together bitterly divided people. And the Christian approach to war and peace is found in the character of God. The Bible describes him as the God of peace, but intriguingly, it also calls him a warrior. So how do we reconcile these two apparent opposites? And it seems the answer is found when we identify the enemy with which God is at war, and that is all kinds of injustice and wrongdoing. Instead of keeping himself immune from conflict, God is deeply immersed in battle against the forces of evil. And the ministry of Jesus illustrates this. In his works, he was in conflict with the various disorders which imprisoned people. In his words, he battled with sin, especially the hypocrisy and the practical godlessness of the religious people of his day. The final showdown comes in Jesus' death, when he meets the full fury of evil and made peace through the blood of his cross. Jesus' first words to his disciples after his resurrection were, "Peace be with you," signalling that his victory had brought harmony and reconciliation between God and humanity. So what then does that imply for Christians in the 21st century? Well, perhaps three fundamental things. First, that we are peacemakers. The Christian fights best when she or he announces peace, not war. And to drive home this point, Jesus gives a really radical teaching that when we're struck on one cheek, we should offer the other to the smiter. By this he means that a positive approach to peace, which was certainly not cowardice or passive submission, was 10 times better than any kind of violence. Second, we use the weapons of peace, as Jesus did. Clear teaching which confronts hypocrisy and wrongdoing. A willingness to speak to our enemies, to address them with love and understanding and respect. A desire to negotiate rather than drive people away. The Old Testament prophesied that one day only peace weapons would remain, when swords would be beaten into plowshares. And third, that violence should always be the very last resort. Christians are quite legitimately divided over the question as to whether violence is ever justified. There are many who say that Christians should be pacifists. This is a long tradition, and a very honourable tradition. For me, I have to say I'm convinced that when evil comes in its really darkest forms and won't listen to any voice of reason, which will refuse to negotiate and which trample down the innocent and defenceless, then there really may be cause for citizens to defend themselves and the values which they believe in passionately. And this argument is usually called just war theory. It asserts that war is only ever justified when 4 conditions are met. The cause must be just. The war must be absolutely the last resort when all other avenues to avoid conflict have failed. Conflict must not involve non-competence, and war should be limited in its scope, avoiding unnecessary loss of life and destruction. Now, it's a fair question as to whether these last 2 conditions can ever be met in modern warfare, particularly, heaven forbid, if we should face nuclear warfare. Perhaps it can be best summed up like this, that the Christians' primary commitment is to peace, and it should be our earnest desire to play a full part in God's struggle against the visible and the invisible forces which tear our world apart. But there is good news here, and it's that God is going to have the last word. Sin and death and evil will be defeated, and God's reign of peace, peace in all its fullness, will one day be a reality. And surely that really is worth working for. Our hymn for today, Eternal Father, strong to save, and may God's peace go with you.